when I was back in college, I would book the bands who played at the college. I actually booked the Dead Kennedys at Antioch, as well as Camper Van Beethoven, Meat Puppets, a bunch of different bands that would be on tour. And college gigs were great because colleges had money and
Oh,
there was a
yeah.
dorm and you could eat in the cafeteria and do your laundry and bands would show up and not leave. I mean, for a while there were
Yeah.
like all bands from all over the country just kind of camping out at Antioch.
I read somewhere that you actually built the stage for the Dead Kennedy show.
Yeah, built the stage for the Dead Kennedy show. We there was a condemned building that was a theater building, and we broke the lock and broke in and built the stage, and they came, and Jello had just was in trouble for a record that he put out with a H.R. Geiger painting called The Penis Fields.
Yeah.
And his offices had just been raided by the FBI, and he was charged with child pornography or distributing pornography to minors, or and I don't know, something like that. They were trying to nail him because he was running for mayor of San Francisco and was leftist and was writing songs about Pete Wilson and Jerry Brown, and that was the Cold War, right? He was a threat. So they were fucking with him, and they actually, FBI showed up at the concert at the show that we booked, and these guys showed up in brand new blue jeans and tennis shoes and like these mirror sunglasses with 35 millimeter cameras around their necks and bulges, and they're under their coat, under their blue jean jacket. And we're like, who the fuck are these people? And it turned out, they were FBI. They were there to monitor the crowd, and they were taking pictures of the people that were there. And we got together with a bunch of us who were putting on the show and kicked them out. They wouldn't tell us who they were or why they were there and why they were taking pictures, and they wouldn't show us any ID, and so we threw them out. I later found out it was the FBI.
Wow.
It was a different time, but that was pretty life-changing experience. I couldn't believe it. People jumping off the stage head first. And the pit and the all those punks in one place, and all the love that was there, and the insanity and the energy, and I had never seen anything like it. I was blown away. I knew that's what I wanted to do. That I found the music I was going to do. It wasn't going to be jazz. It was going to be way simpler, and it was gonna be way more social. I think it had to have some kind of meaning. I was swayed over to play with the Gits at that same time, about 87, 88. Those guys, Mia and Andy and Matt, moved out to San Francisco to play for a while, and they wanted to volunteer at the farm, which was a community center with a garden where they taught, food, where food comes from, to inner city youth.
Yeah.
And they had a big room, and they would do punk rock shows there to pay for it. And so they would stage manage or bartend or whatever. They would work there at the shows and made lots of friends and made a lot of connections and got a different guy to play drums, Bruce Ducheneau, great drummer. He sat in with them, and they played the farm a few times. And bands that they booked and played with were some of the most influential punk bands of ever, really, from California anyway. But they came back and said, "Wow, we saw these bands, Social Distortion and the Bad Brains and Minor Threat and Verbal Abuse." Or, I don't know what the other band, MDC, Dead Kennedys, of course. All those bands on tour would play there because the scene was so small. The Replacements. When they got back from the farm, they said, "Steve, we gotta step it up. We gotta play like these guys, and we gotta be in the scene." So we rehearsed. We just wrote songs and played music, and kind of influenced by those bands and kind of not, because Mia was was kind of a Catholic school girl from Louisville, Kentucky. So she was into the blues and blues singers and Billie Holiday and, just the rock and roll that she heard. But she kind of brought that blues element into it. And she knew Sarah Vaughan and Billy and Etta James and Bessie Smith, and they were all her, what she was listening to. But she also liked,
this new music
she heard, and she was like, wanted to combine it in her delivery and in her lyrics. So she could write a song that had a lot of passion and blues elements and sort of a universal appeal to people's who listened, that to their lives, and she could do it at like 10 times the speed of anyone else. But she was also pissed off, as well as had the blues, so she could combine the two, like no one that I really had heard before. Ann Powers, she started at Rolling Stone, but she writes, I think for Salon.com and the New York Times, and she just said that a lot of singers are influenced by Mia, but probably don't know that they are. Like skateboarding, the sort of tricks and things that people are able to do develop because somebody breaks through a particular barrier to achieving that.
Yeah.
And Mia kind of did that musically.
So you formed up in Antioch. What made you decide to move out to Seattle?
It was as far away from Ohio as we could get. And it was either going to be San Francisco or Seattle. It was a lot cheaper to live there. I had heard that there were cool bands here, there.
Yeah. So that would have been right around 89 or so?
It was the summer of 89. Yeah.
Okay.
Moved to Seattle. It was like an Indian summer. It stayed sunny until like Thanksgiving. And I remember thinking, God, man, everyone said this place is rainy. It's not raining.
No,
it's great. It's beautiful.
Nice in the summertime, yeah.
And then it started raining, and it didn't stop until like July or something. So it tricked me. And so we actively started trying to find gigs. At that point, there was only like 2 or 3 places to play in the whole town. It was like a Tuesday night at the Vogue, Saturday night at the Central, which was in the touristy area, and Friday night at a hole-in-the-wall called Squid Row.
Yep.
And that's where everybody played. There was about a dozen bands, and we all hung out at the Comet and drank together, and we all knew each other. And Sub Pop was putting out some records, and we thought, well, we can do that too. Why do we have to ask Sub Pop to do it? We don't really sound like those bands, and we don't want anyone to tell us what to do, and we certainly don't want to sign over the publishing to our music, which the Sub Pop bands were doing. And so we put out our own compilation record called Bobbing for Pavement that came out in 91. It took us a while to get together, and we just kind of organized a compilation record that was all the bands that we hung out with and drank with at the Comet. We all lived in a big house and called it the Rat House because there were rats that lived in it too. It was a 3-bedroom house, and at times it'd be like 12 or 13 people living there, and touring bands would play there. But we rehearsed in the basement area and helped 70 Bitch get started. They were a band from Seattle who were all women, and they wanted to rock, and they lived there off and on as well, and we all shared gear, and we would play gigs together, and we couldn't get gigs, so we would set them up our own ourselves, or do it in the living room, so we couldn't be stopped. And then at one point, Jonathan, one of the 2 guys that owned Sub Pop, got crushed out on Mia, our singer, and asked her out. And she told us, this guy, Jonathan something or other, asked me out for a drink, and Mia could really drink. And the Jonathan guy couldn't, and she kind of, I don't know what happened, but he did ask her out again, and she declined. Up to that point, Sub Pop was very interested in the Gits and putting out a single, and had actually given us a gig opening for Nirvana at the University of Washington ballroom. And it was our biggest gig ever. It was like 2,000 people there. And that was before Nevermind came out, but still, it was fun. We got to hang out with them, and Tad was on that bill as well.
No, nice.
That was Nirvana, Tad, and us. We thought, hey, maybe these guys will help us put out records and be our record label, but they dissed us from there on out. And Mia was not about to go out with the guy just to get a record contract or anything.
Music Life Radio. Stories at the intersection of